The IEC has announced that it has accepted the recommendations of Justice Moseneke in terms of postponing the local government elections for another date. It now has to go through a number of procedures. Just to tell us a little bit more about what came out of that briefing, let's cross now to my colleague Natasha Phiri. Natasha, over to you.
Well, very good afternoon to you, Nompu. Once again, of course, to our SABC viewers. The news coming in, as you've correctly said, that the Commission, the IEC, has agreed and adopted the findings there of Justice Moseneke's report that recommended that the local government elections be postponed to February 2022. But of course, the Commission still needs to seek authorization from the courts, whether it be the Electoral Court or the Constitutional Court. So for now, Nompu, if everything else fails, the elections should actually or will actually take place on the 27th of October, pending that outcome of the court. But just actually to unpack things further for us, I'm joined by Mr. Sheburi, who's the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer of the IEC, and we'll just talk further, about this matter, if he'll just elaborate these matters with us. Mr. Sheburi, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. Just, for clarity, yes, we've heard the Commission's chairperson, Mr. Mashinini, saying that the Commission has accepted the reports by Justice Moseneke to postpone, the October polls, but it still has to seek clarity or authorization, rather, from the relevant courts.
Indeed, the Commission has accepted the findings of the inquiry, and there are two significant findings. The one is that it is reasonably unlikely that a free and fair election can be held in October 2021. The second one is that if the Commission accepts that finding, it must then seek a vehicle to obtain the deferral of an election in a proper and legal way. There are two options. The one is a constitutional amendment. The other one is approaching a court that has the requisite jurisdiction to grant just and equitable relief and defer elections by 4 months. The Commission has briefed Council team, and Council team is looking at the matter. There are a number of courts that would have jurisdiction. The Electoral Court could have jurisdiction. However, it will not be able to sit as a court of final instance because its decision can be reviewed or appealed against in a higher court. Similarly, a high court could decide that it has jurisdiction, but again, its decision will still be subject to an appeal. The Constitutional Court will have jurisdiction to the extent that this matter raises weighty constitutional matters. However, the court takes a dim view on being approached as a court that sits as a court of first and final instance. It wants to hear the matters be vindicated first at a lower court before it is approached. However, it is notionally possible that we could approach the Constitutional Court, but you must make a case for direct access to that court and demonstrate that your matter is that of a constitutional nature.
So, Mr. Sheburi, if all else fails, then this means that the country may actually go to the polls on the 27th of October.
Indeed, to the extent that we have not obtained any judicial authorization to defer the elections. We do not also want to create a semblance that we are approaching courts on a basis of a fait accompli. We have accepted the report that free and fair elections are not possible in October. However, to the extent possible, we will proceed with all activities that makes us ready to deliver elections while we await for judicial authorization.
And if the judicial authorization route actually does not work out, you've mentioned the constitutional amendment route, but that's also a lengthy process in itself.
Indeed, the constitutional amendment route is a lengthy route. It requires 75% or supermajority of members of the National Assembly. It would also require support by at least 6 of the provinces. If you look at the submission of political parties have taken two divergent views. There are those who want elections to proceed. There are those who think election cannot proceed because they won't be free and fair. That alone should tell you that a constitutional amendment, while notionally possible, may not be plausible given that political parties who must sponsor it and support it in the National Assembly are divided on the matter.
Let's talk about the municipal term of councils. I mean, that expires in November. I mean, what bearing, what implication does this have? So let's just say if the court then does agree that, okay, they will take heed to the Commission's request of postponing, the local government elections to, let's just say, February next year, what then happens to the term of the municipal council?
Out of necessity, in our papers, we must address that point to say, in deferring the elections, we also seek authorization that the current councils are deemed to be competent until such time that an election can be lawfully held.
Let's just also talk about other issues. We've heard that the IEC has pushed back the dates of voter registration.
Indeed, the Electoral Commission has pushed back the date of the voter registration that was scheduled for Saturday, the 31st of July, and Sunday, the 1st of August. That is so not because we are approaching court. It is so because on the evidence of health specialists and scientists, we are in a period of high transmission. The variant that is driving those transmission rate is a Delta variant, which we accept is almost double as transmissible as the two previous variants. So to organize mass gatherings of persons, transportation of persons under such circumstances will be a risky exercise on the part of the Commission. So the deferral of the registration weekend is based on the science that until the end of August, transmission rates will still be high, and to try to have any mass-based or where people meet or transportation of persons places persons at risk. We are persuaded that the best time to hold electoral activities is when a significant number of persons have been vaccinated and that we have achieved community immunity.
And we've heard there are some glitches with the online registration system. Yes, as to date, over 10,000 people have registered online. But I mean, what is your plea to the majority of South Africans right now in terms of, voting online?
We will imminently upload much clearer visual aids onto the registration system to help persons to proceed and complete their transactions properly. Most of the issues are people who are beautiful, who want to be seen, and they take selfies instead of just uploading a picture of their identity document or the reverse part of their smart card. We'll load that so that person who go on our site know in definitive terms what is it that they need to upload as an image onto the system.
And lastly, just from my side, I mean, one can only be curious, Mr. Sheburi. I mean, how has COVID affected the work of the Commission right now? I mean, you're faced with this mammoth task. One would say that, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. You're damned if you do, you're damned, if you don't. And just, alluding to the political, the PLC meeting, the political party liaison committee meetings. I mean, it's a fierce issue. I mean, some political parties saying that elections should go ahead, others saying that they shouldn't go ahead. I mean, how's the work of the Commission right now?
It's a tough space always, but it's made even tougher by the COVID condition. And that is for that reason precisely that the Electoral Commission has asked a person with stature like Judge Moseneke to preside over this inquiry so that the outcomes are dispassionate. They are not influenced by staff of the Electoral Commission. They are not influenced by the feelings of the commissioners, and that it is purely based on the science and the submission that the judge would have considered.
Mr. Sheburi, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. Well, number of viewers, there you have it from the IEC, and of course, if you just tuned into the SABC, those news coming in that the Commission has accepted the findings of Justice Moseneke's report to, postpone the local government elections, but the Commission, the IEC, will be approaching the courts seeking authorization for a deferral of these elections. So we'll just have to wait for the courts, the outcomes of that procedure. If that route doesn't work, then of course the IEC, the Commission, will be seeking the constitutional amendment in regards to this issue. But as for me and the SABC crew here in Centurion, it's back to you in studio.
Thanks very much, Natasha Phiri there reporting from the IEC.